Hi, I'm Ashley Smith Thomas, a millennial talking about freedom and national security for America. I'm the founder of Freedom's Fund USA, a nonprofit to protect freedom and national security. I am a speaker, advocate, and thought leader. I spent 2016 saving Christians targeted by ISIS in the Middle East. This was truly an eye-opening and life-changing experience as I watched and learned from my fellow Christians who longed for freedom. It was that experience that became the inspiration to start this show. In this show, come with me as I interview experts about key freedom issues in America and how we can protect freedom. Because if we lose our freedom, how can we bring freedom to the whole world? Let's take action together and let freedom ring. Welcome, my name is Ashley Smith Thomas, and I am the host of Freedom Talks. The purpose of this show is to educate fellow Americans on key freedom and national security issues. And I'm sure some of y'all are wondering where we have been. It's been 2 years since our last episode was filmed. I actually stepped down from my position to go work for a United States senator. Absolutely loved my job and loved the team and really appreciate the experience. But I realized that my skills and talents could be better used and utilized there in the political arena because, as I'm sure you are aware, this election year is very critical for our nation. So I've been involved in politics, and then I also came back to my nonprofit, Freedom's Fund USA, as we continue to educate Americans on these key freedom and national security issues, working on policy, and continue to help those in need abroad. So it's been fun to be back, and we are relaunching our podcast, Freedom Talks. This is our first episode back, and one of our guests we've had on the program before, but it's really interesting because one of the freedom issues that I would like to discuss today is Title IX. I believe that it's important that we protect our children, especially girls and young women moving forward. And my husband and I, we've just had a baby, our first baby. And what's been really interesting is that even though she's only 3 months old, we have been looking and watching, becoming more alerted and aware of what's going on in women's rights issues, and especially things that are impacting young girls. And that's why I believe that this Title IX discussion is needed. So today I have with me 2 school board members from Carroll ISD, which is in Southlake, Texas. They have been battling the Biden administration's Department of Education once again. And in this issue, it's over Title IX and protecting children. So today I have with me Cam Bryan. He was recently reelected to the Carroll ISD School Board in May and currently serves as the board president. With 33 years of experience as a civil engineer in the aviation industry, Cam brings wealth of expertise and leadership into his role. He believes that schools should be a place of education, not indoctrination. He is a 20-year resident of Southlake. Cam and his wife, Amanda, are deeply committed to their community and their 4 children. And as board president, Cam is dedicated to maintaining Carroll ISD's status as the top-ranking district in the state. And then I have Andrew Yeager with us as well. He's the current vice president of the Southlake Carroll ISD School Board. Andrew's November 2021 special election win flipped the board's composition to a 4-3 conservative majority. He was reelected to a full 3-year term in May of 2022. Andrew is honored to represent the values of Southlake community and keep the woke ideology out of the classroom. Andrew's full-time profession is that of media sales executive, a field in which he spent 34 years building and managing national, regional, and local teams. Andrew has an undergraduate degree from the University of Michigan, a master's degree from Marist College, and he's a proud father of 3 daughters, all graduates of Carroll ISD. Andrew has been married to his wife, Patty, for 27 years and counts his blessings each day. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with me today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yes.
Thanks for having us on your first comeback.
Thank you.
For your program. We're very excited.
Well, I'm excited for the show to be back because I feel like there's just so many freedom issues impacting our nation right now. And I know that you all have been on the front lines, especially here in Carroll ISD once again. And so before we dive into that, I want to ask you all, why did you decide to serve on the Carroll ISD board? What was that determining factor as to why you all wanted to serve?
Well, for me, it's just what you just said. I think us as community members need to serve our communities. And if we don't, we will be taken over by what you're seeing being held today. So for me, it's I've served in the community for the last 15, 16 years, worked with children in youth sports. And my children have now grown up. And so I was like, well, what's next for me? And it turns out that we had a position on the school board, and I was lucky enough to be elected back 3 years ago. And so I plan on serving for another 3-year term and maybe some more after that. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and what about you, Andrew?
Oh, the issues of free speech really got to me. And when I saw that happening at my alma mater, University of Michigan, for undergrad, and they had something called the bias response team. This was overturned in a federal court, but basically what they wanted to do was police microaggressions of students. And when I saw those same words appear in proposed policy by the old school board, I said, I got to stop that because I still had kids in the district, and I basically said, what can I do to help? And somebody said, well, you can run for school board. and they're like, rather you than us.
Great advice, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it had no plans, but to Cam's point, it's if we don't serve, who will?
Who will?
Sure.
And so now we're kind of into it and gotten a rhythm. And it's nice because now we have a 7-0 conservative board, and we can really plan and have vision and get things done.
No. We've done a lot of that over the past 3.5 years, and Andrew served on us. He won a special election shortly after me and another trustee were elected. So he's been on the board just as long as I have, and we've gotten a lot accomplished in the way of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and getting away from the values, behaviors, and beliefs of this indoctrination routine that we've been seeing. And we've made a lot of progress here in Carroll ISD, and we continue to, be on the forefront of these issues, and Title IX being one of them.
That's fantastic. Well, and I know too, a lot of people will say, I want to get involved, but then they actually don't do it. So I commend you guys for actually doing it and getting involved in your community, which is fantastic. You brought up Title IX, which I want to ask you all, for those who are watching and may not even be aware of what Title IX is. Can you explain that to the viewers?
Well, Title IX was part of the Educational Amendments Act of 1972. So it's been in place for over 50 years, really with the promise of a education free of sexual discrimination. It also did a bunch of other things, like level the playing field for women and girls, both not only academically, but athletically. And there's been generations of women and girls that have benefited from this Title IX law. And we're really seeing the benefits of it today. And, I know we're going to talk about this, but, it's unfortunate that the Department of Education, the Biden administration, thinks that they can change law by just, placing a rule through rulemaking of the federal government and the executive branch. And so it's unlawful what he's doing and what that administration is doing. And Andrew and I decided a few years ago that, if this comes to fruition, which it's about to, we're going to fight it with, whatever means necessary to protect our daughters. Actually, it's to protect males and females alike. And so we're in the middle of that now, and I know we have some things to discuss with you in that regard. But that's our purpose is to make sure that our schools and our campuses are safe and secure. And quite frankly, if this goes into effect on August 1st, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a safety and a security problem. That's going to be on Andrew and I and our board.
So what is going to go into effect on August 1st right now?
So the Biden administration, through the Department of Education, a couple of years ago in 22, put out a guidance document for proposed changes to certain parts of Title IX. We believe that one of the most damaging changes to Title IX is really the redefinition of sex from biological sex to gender identity. So anybody could say, hey, I'm a biological male, but I identify as a female. And so therefore I need to use the female restrooms and the locker rooms. And eventually it's going to lead to boys playing on girls' sports teams, which is very dangerous.
Well, and we saw that, really come to the forefront when Riley Gaines, who was a collegiate
Right.
championship swimmer, was at her swim meet and then beaten by a man who identified as a woman, Leah Thomas. And that, I think, really shed light on the issue and the challenge of what Title IX is facing. And I know that she's been traveling the nation, really bringing awareness to that issue. I know that during the last legislative session here in Texas, they passed Save Women's Sports, right?
Right.
There was a lot of sponsors on that from the Senate, and then you had Governor Abbott sign that into law. So granted, we've got state law that's supposed to protect girls, but I know that federal law can trump state law. And so did this policy change that the Biden administration has put on Title IX, did that receive congressional approval, or did he circumvent the legislative branch?
Yeah, I mean, rulemaking is through the executive branch. And so he's trying to change law, which Congress is only allowed to pass with a basic stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he doesn't have the people out there or the representatives vetting this. He's just decided that that's the way it's going to be. And that applies to everyone. Now, you mentioned it does violate Texas state law, but it also violates some policies that this board at Carroll ISD put in place with pronoun use, with biological sex being the determinant of where you go to the bathroom or restroom or locker room or get change. So, there's a lot of implications, not only from a safety and security wise, wouldn't you say, Andrew, but also cost. This is going to be very costly, these changes. If we have to, make some infrastructure changes, we have to do training. There's a series of items in there that school districts like us are required to do. And, there's no funding behind that.
Sure.
And so we're going to fight that even if we don't get, a final injunction after everything has been fully vetted. We're going to continue to find ways to fight against this craziness that it's kind of flipped Title IX totally on its head.
Yeah. And Ashley, Cam mentioned this, but when that guidance came out from the Biden administration, we took it onto ourselves as a board to create a local policy for our ISD. And we were one of maybe just a couple in the state of Texas. And I don't even know nationally, perhaps. Yep. And we wrote a policy, as Cam said, that said, you're going to use the locker room, students will use the bathroom, which corresponds to your biological sex at birth. And we were very careful in how we wrote that because we didn't want to have a loophole. So we didn't use the word gender. We didn't use the verb assigned at birth, which is what is, the left is using those terms quite a bit, so that there's no ambiguity. It was completely clear. And when we did that, that got a lot of people's attention, but that was way before the Biden administration actually attempted to make the change to the law itself. So we were ahead of the curve.
Yes.
And that's why the group, the Alliance Defending Freedom, came to us because they said this federal law will then put you all in immediate harm because you have a local policy.
Okay.
So we had it at the state level, as you said, the last legislature. The one before that, which I believe was the 87th, protected high school sports and made that definition of biological sex.
Right.
So Texas has been leading on this. And then we did our local policy when we saw what was coming to try to be ahead of it. I think Cam agrees with me. We still can't believe. Because for what purpose?
Yeah.
What purpose?
It makes absolutely no sense. And I mentioned that the guidance documents from the Department of Education came out 2 years ago in 2022, but it became final this April, so April of 24. And so that final rulemaking then is what I was saying that goes into effect on August 1st. So we have to have something done
before the
by
school year
August
starts.
1st, or it's going to be a problem for many ISDs around Texas. And we're just hoping that before August 1st, which is next week, that we will have some sort of relief, if not statewide, possibly nationwide.
Which then that leads me then into my next question. How did Carroll ISD get into the position of basically your lawsuit against the Department of Education? Sure. How did that start, and what was that, I want to say breaking point, but that moment that you all decided, no, we have to do this?
So back 2 years ago, Like I was mentioning, when the DOE came out with their guidance documents, Andrew and I like, well, wait a second here. What can we do? And we knew of a law firm, Alliance Defending Freedom, that has had much success on the Supreme Court in these types of areas. And it's kind of like we found each other. ADF, we knew, was representing a school district in Louisiana, and they were looking for a school district to represent in the state of Texas. And so we reached out to them, they reached out to us. And at the time, we weren't sure if this was going to go final or not. So we decided to just take a step back and just see what happens. In the meantime, Attorney General Paxton actually did sue the Department of Education. I think it was in was it in the Abilene court
or Amarillo, maybe,
or maybe Amarillo?
Yeah.
No, it was in federal court. Judge O'Connor ruled on it, and so Judge O'Connor recently, that's in the Fort Worth District Court, federal court, ruled that I think it was an injunction or a stay for the whole state, but it only applied to these guidance documents that DOE put out in 2022. And so those expire on August 1st.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, we got to have something starting on August 1st to get us through whenever, this is going to go to, trial or whatever, the legal process is. And so the beauty of Alliance Defending Freedom, not only they're a great firm and they're very successful and they win, but they're pro bono. And so school districts' favorite four-letter word is free.
Sure.
And so we are so happy to be partnering with them. They're really great. In fact, they argued our case in July. And I know you probably ask about that, but I'll save that to your question. Yeah. Anything else on ADF that you want to mention, Andrew?
As Cam had said, it really was sort of a marriage of convenience, if you would, because we had a local policy that we had to protect. They found out about it, and we waited for the right time. It didn't make sense when it was just guidance to enter in. We said, let's wait and see. And who knew that we would be doing it in April when the Biden administration pushed it into law. We really had no choice.
Yeah. And it's, Andrew and I were talking about this beforehand. We've talked about it before that, our school board is a very aligned, strong school board. And it just shocks us that there's 1,200 school boards around the state of Texas. There's 1,200 school districts, and we're the only ones that have stepped up. And it's kind of indicative of education around the country these days. And and we're not immune to it here in Texas, that the indoctrination is real. People believe in this made up ideology. Yeah. And there has to be somebody to, have the courage to step up. And we've done that, and we've been successful at it, and we're going to continue. And hopefully, eventually, more ISDs around the state and the country will, jump on board and follow along.
That's incredible. Well, I know before the show I had mentioned, it just seems like the federal government and the media is obsessed with you all, because it seems like Carroll ISD is constantly in the news. And especially the fact that you all are giving pushback. I commend you all, because really what it's appearing to be is that the federal government is really a bully pulpit. And it's just unbelievable that we are in this moment as a country. But hopefully you all will get the outcome that you all are seeking. And hopefully that will be kind of just that tip of the spear, and encourage other school districts to follow suit. Take us back to July. Okay. I know when I was on social media, I was tracking the case when you all were there in the federal court, and people were just shocked with some of the statements that were presented by the federal attorneys. Tell us what was going on and what was the federal attorney's position to y'all's challenge.
I'll set it up and I'll let Andrew fill in the blanks. I think it was July 8th, Monday, that our attorneys and DOJ were invited to Judge O'Connor's court in Fort Worth to make their arguments. And so both sets of attorneys made their arguments, and just 3 days later, on July 11th, Judge O'Connor came out with a stay or an injunction for Carroll ISD only. So on August 1st, Carroll ISD does not have to apply. the rulemaking from the Biden administration's changes to Title IX. So we are protected.
Okay.
And then after that, we filed a brief asking Judge O'Connor to not only make it statewide, but also nationwide. And so that's what we are waiting on now, is for Judge O'Connor to rule. We're hoping that he rules, and we think he will rule prior to, I think it's next Thursday is August 1st when the rule comes in place. And so if that happens, then that will be an injunction or a stay, whatever the terminology is, for the entire state of Texas, and all school districts around the country won't have to apply this law. It's save millions, probably billions of dollars, doing this. So we're excited about that. And Andrew and I were both there watching the arguments, and we were just astonished at the Department of Justice attorney wouldn't say the word male or female or biological sex. It was just incredibly shocking that, they've bought in to the gender ideology and everything that goes along with that. Mm-hmm. And, it just it opened my eyes, and I'm sure it opened yours, Andrew, that, it was just flowing out of this attorney's mouth like she wasn't even having to think about it. Mm-hmm. So it's ingrained in her brain that this is reality. Mm. And we're all looking at each other going, oh my goodness. Yeah. What in the world is going on here?
Yeah. And Judge O'Connor did a wonderful job. It was 2.5 hours. So we're sitting there on a hard wooden bench behind two sets of lawyers. It was the alliance lawyers who were leading it, and then our board lawyers, and then us. And we really no one was talking. And then there was this DOJ attorney solo. Right. I thought they'd fly in a team. Yeah. It was just one young.
I thought it'd been a team.
Yeah, just one young lawyer.
Yeah. Okay.
Who apparently we realized was maybe defending something similar to this in another state and had lost or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But she was giving her best effort. I mean, in a way, maybe she was put out to win an unwinnable case, because when Judge O'Connor started questioning her, and that was about an hour the 2.5 hours. Yeah. He was just very rational, and basically he kind of caught her in a trap, because she would say that we're not trying to create a new protected class, which really only Congress can do.
Right.
But she was. And then he would say something like, okay, so what about students who are identifying as a different race? Would you have something that you'd protect them? Well, no, Your Honor, right? That's a niche group. Okay, what's niche? Can you define niche for me? And then he said, well, what about students who identify as another species? You hear about furries, and it's right. Being school board trustees, unfortunately, it's a real thing.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. And well, that's an outlier. Okay, what's an outlier? Can you give me an idea? Mm-hmm. And he was not being snarky. He was being very professional. Mm-hmm. But what we saw, our lawyers and everybody in the room saw that this was sort of unraveling her case. And what they really wanted to do was to create a new protected class for a really small group, that the judge should try to get some scope of how many students this would be, that she had no research. Yeah. And if I could add one part, and that was I think did a great job of saying, imagine a elementary student, and she goes into a locker room, and I think his words, Cam, were unclothed. Mm-hmm. And because of this change in the law, sees an unclothed male student, same age. Did the Department of Education provide you, have they done any research or consider research about what type of trauma and what that does de minimis harm to that girl, to that elementary girl student? Which was, I thought, fantastic question, because that's really if you break it down, that's really what we're talking about, is protecting these girls. Yes. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm sure they've done some. And the judge was very polite. Yeah. Do you have that handy? Mm-hmm. And she's going through a 3-ring binder. I don't have that at this time. So he was really giving her an opportunity to prove that this doesn't harm, all these young girls. And she really didn't make her case, I think, Cam. Yeah, right. Would you agree there?
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, it's just when you don't answer a question he probably gave out 4 or 5, maybe even more hypotheticals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't answer any of them because she only cares about the gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in a way, it absolutely undermined her case.
Yes,
Sure.
it sure
And
did.
again, everybody in the courtroom, the reporter who wrote about it did a great job, saying exactly what happened in the
Well,
courtroom.
and it was that hypothetical that I saw circulating online
Oh.
that people were just shocked that they didn't really have an answer for that.
No.
And so, and to your point, that really is the issue when it comes down to this Title IX is the
Yeah.
fact of, okay, how does that impact, young girls
Yeah.
if they see
Yeah.
a young man,
Yeah.
unclothed in the locker room. And which leads me then to my next question, because I know you all have daughters.
Yeah.
And when we think about the future, are you all concerned about the future of your daughters here in either your district, state, or even nationally, given that we've got policymakers and leaders that have such a ideology that they're so convinced that it's okay for men to be women or women to be men. And it kind of goes back to like scripture when it says that, in the days it will see where truth is a lie and lie is called a truth.
Right.
Are you all concerned about your daughters and where this is headed as a country?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a daughter that just graduated from college, she's a civil engineer, one that's about to graduate from college in nursing, and one that's a junior. And, Title IX equaled the playing field for women and girls, not only in educational, but as Title VII was for employment, right? So, they're now being employed, and such great strides has taken place to allow them to, get the education that they, strive to achieve, and then get a great job after that. And these changes, it's going to spill over. Title IX will spill over into all of the others, and it's going to impact women in the workplace. In my opinion, big time.
Yeah. I had a chance to meet with Riley a couple times, Riley Gaines, and when you hear her story in person about how she went into that locker room for the competition, and there was no heads up, no prior warning to her or the other women swimmers that a male was going to be unclothed right there with them. And she said that I think there was a swimmer, and it was either on her team at the time or in a competition, who had a terrible and traumatic experience with rape. And what that type of trauma, back to what the judge was proving. Yeah. What about the harm to all of those?
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that we're tasked to help protect students, and that's pre-K through 12. I think we would agree that one of the great things about America is the freedom when you're an adult.
Of course.
To if you want to believe who you are and change that, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But there's something that's really scary to me is this moral fiber starting to kind of, come apart. And that is, we used to have consensus in this country about what is age appropriate.
Yeah.
And we still have movies, right, where you
Right.
can't go for a certain age. And there are reasons for that. And we this spills into other issues that we
sure
have to
does.
create policies on. And it's just kind of can't believe that there are people who don't think that there's this age appropriateness for these young age. And I think the judge just, again, did a fabulous job of saying, this isn't right. This isn't okay. This causes harm to a lot of young girls. And you know what? That's not what the law tried to do. As he said in his first sentence, this is actually undoes it.
Yeah.
Yep.
What would you say to those that are watching that want to make a difference, whether that is, supporting causes that help protect Title IX or just getting involved locally? What would you encourage them to do to take some action?
I think grassroots efforts are very important. I think like Andrew and I and our board getting involved in your community and understanding what's going on in the world. We have found through just this position, the majority of our community, they're awesome. They're well educated. They're doing really well, but they have no idea of what's going on in their schools. And COVID helped us out with that, but they still have no idea. And, honestly, we always say, get your head out of the sand,
Yeah.
get involved with your community, make a difference that way. And that's what we've tried to do is just that grassroots effort. I mean, the school board is a voluntary position. It's an elected position, but it's a voluntary position. It's one of the lowest elected type positions around, but maybe one of the most important. And so those are some of the things that, we need more people to step up. We're having a very difficult time just in this community finding people that want to supersede us. We just can't find them. Nobody wants to spend the time or the hassle or whatever. So we do have a crisis, I think, in this country with the younger generation stepping up and getting involved in their communities.
And I think, to echo that point that Cam made, we do have a crisis. I've called it a crisis of courage. And that is to say that people think that they have to have a certain resume to run for school board. You don't. You know, we're all every one of the 7 of us that are on the board come from different backgrounds, which is good.
Which is great.
But you only need to have courage on your resume and to stand up. And really, it's common sense. As we talked about just age appropriateness. These are 90% of society believes this. It's such a fringe, component that believes in something very radical. Unfortunately, they've got the Biden administration. I've worked in the media my whole life. They have the media to back them. And like you said, they start to tell things that aren't true, and you keep telling them and telling them. And that's a real shame. But just, what? Everybody is qualified to run for a local volunteer office if you have the courage to do so.
You're exactly right.
Well, I think that is such a great way to close out the program and really just empowering and encouraging people to get involved and have the courage and fortitude to do so. And I just want to thank you all so much for coming on the show, sharing with us the battle that Carroll ISD once again is having with the Department of Education. And please keep us updated on that injunction. And we look forward to having you all back on the program again soon. So thank you all again for being here.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Absolutely. Well, as we close here, what I just want to say is that, as parents, we have the right to protect our children. We also have the right to protect their privacy. And the thing is that we can no longer afford to sit silently on the sidelines. We need to do our part to get involved. And so just like Cam and Andrew said, it takes courage. It takes fortitude to get involved. And I want to encourage you to really seek that inner courage, that strength to do your part to get involved in your community. Because truly, it's not only what happens at the international level or the national level, but it all starts at the local level. And if we want to bring that change, it starts with us first here locally. So I want to encourage you that no matter what the pressure is, no matter if you're going up against a bully, whatever it looks like, please make sure that you continue to stand strong and push back and be the one who paves the way for future generations. Scripture says in John 16:33 that in the world we will have distress. In some translations, it says tribulation, but the Lord says, for I have come to conquer the world. So may we continue to keep our hope, our faith, our trust in Him, and continue to move forward within courage, fortitude, and grit as we continue to stand for righteousness, speak truth, and protect freedom. If you'd like to learn more about Freedom Talks podcast or Freedoms Fund USA, visit us at freedomsfundusa.org. That is freedomsfundusa.org. And we look forward to having you back with us again. Thank you, and God bless.